Hello and welcome to another episode of the Manufacturing Leads podcast with me, Mark Branknell, Managing Director of Theo James Recruitment. What's it like to be the plant director of an automotive manufacturer that's been going for 75 years? Well, in today's episode, we found out John Phillips is the Manufacturing Director of Gestamp Talent with 1,000 employees based in Newton Aycliffe. I love this episode. I couldn't wait to get Jonathan on. I was very excited by it, and he did not disappoint. We talk in depth about leadership. We use words like empathy, safety, understanding people. Words I now hear great leaders talk about, which has definitely changed from many years ago. You're going to learn a lot of lessons about leadership in this episode before we talk in depth about manufacturing, about automotive, or the transition now to electric vehicles, to sustainability. We talk in depth about how you keep people happy, content, and thriving in a post-COVID era where things have definitely changed. So again, something you're going to be able to pick up and implement today. No more, what you're going to hear is just an empathetic and brilliant leader, someone who you're going to be inspired by. So please get yourself a coffee, listen, watch, whatever you prefer to do. And I would be honoured if you wouldn't mind liking, subscribing, rating the show, and obviously will help me continue to get great guests like Jonathan. So thank you very much. Enjoy the episode. Excellent. A warm welcome to Jonathan Phillips on the Manufacturing Leads podcast. I must say sorry in advance, I am recovering for the dreaded man flu. So apologies, I'll speak a lot less and ask more questions. But welcome, Jonathan. This is a long time coming. I know we've tried to make this happen for a number of months, but we made it.
Yeah, we did eventually. Thank you for the offer, Mark, and I'm delighted to be here. Hopefully, I've got some interesting things to be able to share with you and give you some information that people might be able to take and use.
Yeah, can't wait, mate. Really looking forward to this one. So, same question I ask everyone: what does it mean to you to be a leader?
A responsibility, I guess, and a feeling of responsibility for the people who work within the organisation and the business. The important thing for me is that we provide some level of sustainability, some level of continuity, so that the people who work here feel that they are safe, secure, and have a job that they can rely on. So being a leader comes with it for me a lot of sort of responsibility. That's what it means to me ultimately. The people who work in the organisation.
I really like that. And actually, one of the words you used there, I think it's almost like an underrated word. And someone mentioned it a while ago on here about safety, about that feeling of being safe, because it's not, people don't know he mentioned that. They mentioned, and obviously links in with stability in that piece, but I think in your own job as a leader or an operative or whatever you are, that feeling of just feeling safe is really important, isn't it, I think?
It is important, and it's difficult to achieve that. We've got a world that's very changeable. Not a lot of stability in it. If you read too much of the news, you can feel a little bit insecure. But yes, in terms of my role as a leader, ultimately, I want people to feel that they have a role that's valued, a role that's appreciated. And that within the organisation they can express themselves and feel that they've got some progression for development if they wish, or stability in the role if they feel comfortable just doing what they've always done and continue to do so.
Yeah, excellent. And I'd love to actually go back to you, because I've heard, we've spoken a lot. I've heard a lot of people who work for you and always spoken very highly of you as a leader. You've obviously worked your way up to a very senior role within one of the biggest manufacturers in the Northeast. Was being in that role something in the early stages you always wanted to do, and you saw that path for yourself, or how did that come about, would you say? Let's take us back.
Yeah, I guess, well, I started my career at Nissan as an industrial engineer, and that gave me the very privileged opportunity to work within every aspect of the manufacturing plant up there at NM UK. So that gave me a very broad horizon of opportunities, particularly within manufacturing. And yes, you saw some people in that organisation who you kind of looked up to and thought, yeah, it would be really good to be able to run something of this kind of scale and size and an organisation. So that was really where everything started for me. I went into some of the tier one automotive manufacturing. And then the real growth ultimately for me came when I was a consultant. I was across Europe working for companies like Airbus, Bombardier, Transportation, throughout Europe, on the A380, that big huge jumbo jet, and their supply chain management. And that really gave me the opportunity to understand from a perspective of being a leader. As a consultant, you have to win the hearts and minds of people, and winning those hearts and minds in a constructive way, not in a way that's preaching and lecturing and dictating, but one which kind of takes people with you. And that really started to sort of mold me as a person, as a leader. And from that, really, I just sort of saw that as an opportunity came, I would take it. And here I am here at Newton Aycliffe in a plant with more than 1,000 people, and a lot of responsibility that goes with it.
Yeah, and you've worked in some challenging environments. Like you mentioned, then automotive obviously is a challenging environment. Have you consciously adapted your management style over time? If you think back to when you were first a leader versus where you are now, what the changes would you say you've made?
I guess I don't know if it's true or not, but as you get older, you maybe find a little bit more empathy, and a little bit more. You find that you can understand people's positions a little bit more. I wouldn't say you give people more time, because time is of the essence, as always in the automotive industry. You have to be very agile and move very quickly. But it's about bringing people with you. When I first started in some of my earlier roles, I was an improvements kind of guy who was within the industrial engineering community. It's all about time, motion, value stream mapping, and understanding how we can improve and develop and enhance our processes and become more efficient. And that's really the essence of everything that I kind of work towards. And earlier in my career, I would be very, very quick at trying to introduce those improvements, and very demanding of not just myself, but all of the people around me to try and buy into it. And I guess as time goes on, you realize that without people understanding and really believing and buying into those different ways of working and different methods and processes, then if you don't take people with you, then you're plowing a lone furrow, and it ain't going to work. So I guess my management style has developed through that industrial engineering and continuous improvement phase of plowing on and getting things done as quickly as possible, to one whereby it's actually realizing that you're not going to get anywhere unless the people are coming with you.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I think that's a tough one, isn't it, for people who start a new role internally in the business, suddenly thrust into management, they've got to lead a team, or actually starting in a brand new position as a leader, and they've got to step into a team who don't know them, and they've got to manage them. So if you were to do that, your advice, what would be to quickly understand the different people individually or as a team? Is that a
both? You need to understand the dynamics of the individual, but also how they fit into the team. We use the phrase sometimes that you don't want a team of Ronaldos. You need a balance throughout that team of people who are really pushing forward and trying to innovate and create new ways of doing things. But then you need the people who are going to have that balance of stability, and of following routines and rigors and disciplines that ultimately underpin everything that we do. So yes, you need to understand the team, and how those team dynamics work and who the individuals are within the team. But then, of course, you need to understand the individuals, because everyone has different individual needs.
Yeah, I agree with that massively, actually, and I do that when I'm recruiting myself. You've got great, successful people, but I couldn't have a team of them, because, do you know what I mean? It's that balance, isn't it? Not that they can't be all successful, but we can't have a team of that particular trait, because everyone brings something different, don't they, to the business?
They do. Yeah, absolutely. Everyone brings something different, and it's important to recognise that. It's not all about the person who shouts the loudest and makes the most amount of noise. Some people get suppressed by those kind of individuals and those characters, and part of the role of the leader is to allow those other people to have the airtime, or to listen to them, and then you can take their message to the rest of the team if they maybe aren't confident enough or don't feel comfortable in doing so.
Do you think management and leadership has changed over time? Because you mentioned empathy there, and I don't think that probably wouldn't have been a word 30 years ago, I would say, that was on leaders' lips, but it now is, and it's important.
Yeah, possibly not. If I think back to maybe some of the earlier days in my career and some of the management styles that I was kind of, say, subjected to, but observed, then yes, it was probably more prevalent. I would suggest that, people back in the 70s and 80s were maybe more aggressive, felt that it was okay to kind of take a more aggressive and forceful style. And maybe the word empathy wasn't used as much then, but people still had feelings, people still had insecurities, people still had difficulties. Maybe within the business world, it was felt that it wasn't the role of business to support those needs because it was their own personal issues that maybe they had to resolve themselves. But cast your mind way back to the Cadbury's village, and it's not unusual, and it has been done in the past many years ago, where welfare and the well-being of the employees was very prevalent and very important. So it's not new, it's not unusual, but I think we maybe as a nation, we probably lost our way a little bit, and it did become a lot more aggressive and a lot more about me rather than about us.
Yeah, 100%. That's probably a nice segue into what you and I have discussed before, and I think, and we mentioned as well, how COVID was probably a catalyst for this change. I know, Gestamp is doing a lot of great stuff regarding this, and I think a lot of companies can learn from it, is how important people are in a business, but that recognition piece. But actually, it isn't just about the salary and X, Y, Z now. It's about all those other things to make sure that people are looked after. Because I can tell you from my experience now that people ask much deeper questions about the company and the job when they're looking for an opportunity than they ever used to now. It's the employee value proposition, all that piece is really prevalent now. Have you seen that transition over the last, I guess, 4 years now, really, if we're talking sort of pre and post COVID, aren't we, really?
Yes, I would say so. And I think COVID drove a lot of that. The working from home part of it, the work-life balance aspect of it, the importance of spending time with the family. I think some people possibly spend too much time with their families in COVID, but I think that brought to the forefront the importance of having a balance. Yeah. And yes, we have seen that people do request and ask about the balance between work and life, and about other aspects of working from home, about the offering of the business in terms of different kind of other aspect of the contract. So, what's the maternity and paternity leave? Do we give flexible working in terms of their ability to support childcare needs and their ability to be a carer perhaps for an elderly parent, and what kind of relief can we give people for that? You get into the realms then of particularly when you look at the lower grades of pay, about bursaries and how we can support people in other ways in terms of helping them. And then, of course, there's the community aspect of it, and people are interested in a business who has got a social responsibility and an integrity in terms of, particularly for us as employing 1,000+ people in Newton Aycliffe, what do we do for the local community, and how can we support them, and what other activities do we undertake as a business? And people want to be part of some of those things. So yes, the questioning is much broader than just the role itself. It's about more sort of wider aspects.
Yeah, 100%. Look, you've been at Gestamp for a while. You've worked up into a very senior position. What's it like working for a business which is the biggest manufacturer in that area, with a really interesting history, I guess, behind it? Does it feel important to be? Because obviously it's one of those where an SME next door might go, it's okay for the big boys. You know what I mean? That sort of mentality. But
yeah. It's a really unique business. The site here, the Gestamp plant here. We celebrated our 75th year, our 75th anniversary last year of manufacturing on the same site. And we started a business here that was on an old munitions site. And the first products that were made here were fancy goods. So they were powder cases made out of the shells of those of the munitions that were made here. And from there, it grew into making white goods, so microwaves, washing machines, and then moved into the automotive industry. And here we are today from a business that started 75 years ago with 7 different factories and over 1,000 people. And with that heritage, let's say, and with that longevity comes a further sense of responsibility. My role here is to ensure that the plant, when I sit in my smoking jacket and slippers, is fit and able to sustain itself for another 75 years. So I do feel that sense of responsibility, and I do feel that sense of history, and it comes with a sense of pride. There are people who've worked here for 40 plus years, and we have a celebration of long service each year, and it always astounds me how many people are there with more than 25 years service. And then you've got people with 40 plus year service. And we have a very strong apprenticeship program. We've got 40 plus apprentices across the various different year groups. And that's, again, one of our ways of paving the way for the future and giving us a group of people who feel part of an organisation that they can stay with for the rest of their career. So, yes, it's a very unique business, and one with it comes a unique responsibility.
Yeah. How much that pressure do you feel? Because you've got a very calming presence, but like you say, that position you're in, it is one where comes a lot of pressure because of the heritage and because of the demands. Is that something that is it water off a duck's back for you, or is it something you feel and have to drive?
It's a bit of both, really. You want to feel the pressure of that sort of responsibility, because that helps drive you forward. It helps keep you grounded. It helps keep you focused on what's important. It doesn't become overwhelming, because you can't afford to let it become overwhelming. So, as a leader, you have to find those coping strategies and mechanisms and understand yourself well enough to know when the pressure's getting to you. How do you find that release? Where is that release? And yes, you can't. My opinion is that as a leader, you can't afford to be running around with your hair on fire. You need to be calm and steady, and that person that people can go to for some guidance, some advice, to bounce ideas off. And so, yes, it does come with a responsibility, but you have to be able to cope with that and understand yourself well enough to be able to manage your own expectations and your own desire to do as best as you can.
Apologies for interrupting this podcast for a very quick 30-second pitch of my business. Theo James are a specialist manufacturing and engineering recruitment search firm based in Seaham in the Northeast. If you're looking for any staff or a new opportunity yourself, from a semi-skilled level right the way up to C-suite executive, then please get in touch. We have a specialist consultant in each discipline ready to help. I'm extremely proud of what we've built over the years, and I'd love to extend that service out to you. Thank you. Enjoy the podcast. Yeah, great. I love that. And I think it's been okay. It's okay now for leaders to understand that it's all right for them to feel stressed and pressurized and almost show it sometimes, because I think that's, a phenomenon that leaders shouldn't feel or shouldn't show that side of pressure. But, we're more often than not, it's the most pressurized job in the room, and it's difficult. Do you feel like you have coping mechanisms to make sure that stress for you remains at a certain level? Do you have to section sort of time off yourself, or have you got that under control, would you say?
I would say I've got it under control, but there are always. I've got a couple of dogs, which is great to go and walk them. The further I walk, the better it is. So it's nice to get out into the outdoors. Got a young boy who plays football, and it's great to watch him, and that's a release. And then you talk to other people around you talk to other parents around the football pitch, and my role, yes, is one of high responsibility and high pressure, and all of the things that we've talked about in terms of the heritage of the business. But every person has got their own pressures, and every person's got their own stresses and strains and own issues that they have with their own working life. Be it a guy who runs his own business, doing odd jobs around the community and joinery and such like, to those people in positions like mine. And everyone has their own pressures and issues, and who am I to think that mine are greater than anyone else's? So we all have to kind of appreciate that we've all got our own stresses and strains. That's just life, and we have to ultimately support each other, support yourself, and know how to do that. Not everybody does. Some people need more help than others. I'm fortunate enough to be able to find that balance and find those release mechanisms to help keep me sometimes on an even keel.
I love that. Excellent. I like to pick your brains about culture, because we've sort of touched on it with some of the stuff, but culture now is so integral to a business and so important for a business's future and staff happiness, if you like. As a business, is that been the forefront of Gestamp's journey? How have you done that? Because I know, the feedback we've had from people who work there has been very, very positive, and that's something that they have concentrated on, not just happened by chance.
Yeah, it's difficult because with the number of people that we have, it's always difficult to influence every leader within the organization. Yeah. But ultimately, you have to set an example. My example that I try to set is one of empathy. Ultimately, one whereby, okay, we have a job to do, we have to deliver. If we don't deliver, we won't be here in the future. So there is a pressure. We have to recognise that it's good to have that pressure of knowing that we have to deliver, but it has to be done within a culture of respect and integrity and honesty and openness. Because without that, then how do you get people to come along the journey with you? And it's difficult because you have so many different characters and different people in different leadership positions, and to influence all of those people and get them to recognize what it is that you expect of them is always going to be hard. But to set the example is the first thing, and then to challenge those behaviors and call them out is the second. And over time, people get to understand and recognize who it is that we look for and what kind of traits and behaviors we look for in our leaders. That results in some people leaving the business, but it also gives us an opportunity then to demonstrate that the kind of people that we want in the organisation.
Yeah, love that. And away from leadership, I know we've spoken before, and that this is, I think it's a nice myth to debunk this, because you mentioned it yourself there. Gestamp are a large organisation, and I think there's a misconception where companies think larger companies, it's easy because you can throw money at happiness and they can do this. But I disagree. I think it's much harder to control the culture of a company of 1,000 staff versus 20 staff, because there's more people to please. Simple as that. And I also disagree that it costs a lot of money to make staff happy. It comes from exactly what you've spoken about there, right from the leaders. But I often find it's the little things that people mention. It's a thing. It's the cake on a Friday. It's the van coming. It's that type of stuff. It's the little things. It's the sports stage that people put on. It's that type of stuff which people think is fluffy, but it isn't. That's that community vibe. Is that something that as a business they've worked on? What do you say?
Yes, very hard. You're right. As a larger organisation, you can put more resource to things, but it requires a lot more resource to do those things. So we have a person in our organisation who's our health and wellbeing leader. That's aside from our safety team. And yes, we've had family fun days. And yes, we have the Tuesday butty vans coming in and the ice cream vans in the summer. And yes, we have free vent coffee machines on time to talk days and biscuits on the tables. We do a lot of work with the charity committee. We have a sports and social committee. So we do a lot of those things, absolutely. And yes, bigger organizations can put more resource to those things, but to try and touch those 1,000 people and try and get them to understand what it is we're offering them is always difficult. But those things that may seem small aren't always that small. We sometimes get criticised. Well, how can you afford to put the butty van on when we can't afford to get this? and it's getting the balance right, but that butty van that comes in, the hog roast van that comes in, what you have to also understand is that some people in our organisation, that they'll be sacrificing their tea for that butty van, so that means they can put another meal on the table. Because the cost of living crisis has has affected a lot of people, and some of those people work within our organisation. So we have to recognise that some of those things that might seem small and insignificant to some are quite big and important to others, and it's getting the balance right and trying to do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I really like that. Automotive is obviously the heritage in North East is phenomenal, and you started off at Nissan yourself. It is obviously now a time of change where there's all the renewable sustainability, the electric vehicles coming in. Are you seeing that transition get faster and faster now? As obviously, sort of companies are starting to change their mentality piece. How are Gestamp sort of dealing with that? Would you say?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big thing. Of course it is. It's a big thing in terms of not just the automotive industry, but industry in general, globally. Everything we do and here currently is around the climate crisis that we face. And yes, in the automotive industry, things are moving, and things are moving very quickly. You referred to Nissan. Every vehicle that they make in the near future will be electric. All of the new models that are going into the Nissan Sunderland factory are all electric. We're launching new vehicles with BMW for Mini in the next few months. They are all electric vehicles. We're producing new vehicles for Volvo in the next 18 months. They're all electric vehicles. So every new vehicle that's coming to market is electrified. It's an electric vehicle, not an internal combustion engine one. So the automotive industry is moving, and it's moving quickly. I was just listening on the news this morning to the chief executive of Airbus and around air travel and around how they're trying to accelerate and do as much as they can to decarbonize their industry. And his very words were, they're not moving fast enough. And ultimately, nobody is, because of the situation that we face globally from the climate crisis and the warming of the globe. So yes, the automotive industry is moving, and yes, Gestamp ourselves are doing a lot of things, a lot of initiatives in terms of how we can recycle some of the energy that we generate in some of our processes, some of the heat that we generate, how we can optimize and use our energy as wisely and as carefully as possible, solar panels and all of those things that you would expect are being done. And then it's not just about the impact to the environment on carbon, it's also about the impact on environment in terms of waste and how we can reduce our waste streams. And, we have no waste that comes out of this plant that goes to landfill. Everything is recycled and reused. And, we produce a product that's primarily made out of steel, and we're now looking at green steel. So every piece of raw material that we use in our products is something that's been recycled. So every aspect of our business is looked at and scrutinized and how we can do things better. And, that sort of grounding that I got in the industrial engineering sort of phase of my career it's set me in good stead, because you have to be able to adapt and change and do things in a different way and have that philosophy of continuous improvement.
Yeah, it's huge, isn't it? I mean, the amount of change that's happening now in manufacturing Germany is massive. Again, I just think it's such an unspoken industry now. Do you know what I mean? It used to be such a powerhouse, and it's just not spoken about now. All the stuff you've mentioned there is unbelievable, really. And the Northeast, how much it has to offer now is amazing. It's brilliant. It's not just Washington, Nissan now. It's Teesside, it's Durham. It's every aspect. It's a brilliant place to be. What would you say the biggest sort of challenges that we're facing in the industry now? Would you say it might be specific to Gestamp? It might be just as a whole the industry. What would you say concerned about?
I guess the big thing for me in terms of the changes that we're going through at the moment, in terms of not just the automotive industry, but industry in general, and the climate challenge, let's call it, is the levels of investment that are required in order to keep up with. If we look towards China, and speaking from personal experience, we've been challenged in the past in terms of winning new work. And we can't compete with some of the levels of capital support that the Chinese get from their government compared to the ones that we get. And I was recently in London talking to some of the government ministers about investment and about how we can generate the capital investment needed to compete on the global stage, because ultimately that's what we need to do in the Northeast. We're not just the Northeast of England competing with other regions of the UK. We're competing on a global platform. And there's simply no money in government to support industry in being that at the forefront of that technology. And you see what's happening in America and the investment that they're putting into the green technologies. And then you see what's happening in China and the investment that they receive. And it's very, very difficult to compete. And if we don't compete today, we won't be competitive and we won't be here in the future. So that's, I guess, my greatest fear in terms of how do we invest today to protect the future of the next generation and allow them the opportunities that we've had with the likes of Nissan coming here in the early 80s.
Yeah, that's great. And it needs more people like you to speak up, doesn't it, for that? It's I mean, I'm seeing manufacturer collaborate more and more, I would say, but is that it's almost like a call to arms, isn't it? I mean, would it help your case if every single leader of every single manufacturing business was like-minded and spoke up with that, I would imagine?
I think they are. I think every leader of a manufacturing organisation is aware of that challenge.
Yeah.
But it's having the forum and having the opportunity to have that platform. You've got good organisations in the Northeast, like the Northeastern Automotive Alliance, who give a voice. The Northeastern Chamber of Commerce gives a voice. So yeah, there are organisations within the Northeast that kind of bring manufacturing and businesses together to provide that platform. But yes, not everyone has the opportunity of taking part in those conversations. But ultimately, I think we're all on the same page. We all want what's best for the Northeast. Ultimately, the UK second. So yeah, I think everyone has that same drive and desire for the Northeast to be successful.
Yeah, great. I think I completely agree. I think what you're doing there is excellent, because it needs more people to do exactly that, to put their head above and shout about it. We spoke a lot about Gestamp, and I think it's a great company to learn from. What are you excited about for the next sort of 18, 24 months? What's sort of what's on the agenda?
Yeah, I mean, business-wise, a lot of things. As I said earlier, the automotive industry is transitioning to electric. We see some bumps in the road because government legislation changes. We've already seen the internal combustion regulations change and get pushed out by a number of years. That means that for the automotive industry, what was going to be a switch over to electric in the next couple of years is going to take a little bit longer, and there'll be a merger between existing vehicles and new vehicles. But in the next 18 months, we've got a real change in our business here in portfolio at Gestamp Aycliffe. We're launching products for BMW, for Volvo. We see the end of life of some of our Ford products, end of life of some of our existing BMW, a lot of new work with Nissan and some of their electric vehicles that are coming to market. So big investment in the plant, and a big set of new challenges. We're integrating our processes. We're using automated technology. So yes, it's very exciting. There's a lot of new things happening in the business, which is really good, because we're involved. We're at the forefront, and it's going to be an exciting 18 months to see all of these new products come into serial production.
Nice, excellent, mate. Well, I've got some quick fire questions. You might not have seen these, so we'll have a look. Who was your best manager you've ever had, and why?
My best manager I've ever had. I would say it was a chap called Francois Charles. He was a French guy. I worked at a place called Faurecia, and he was here with his wife and his family. He was a live wire. He was very dynamic. He was French, so he had that Gaelic flair. But he supported me. He gave me opportunity. He allowed me some freedom in my role as an improvements engineer, and let me make the mistakes that I needed to make to learn a little bit. So I would probably say he was the best leader I've had as a line manager.
Is that freedom thing something that you've taken on it? Because I agree. I think that's, but I think giving people freedom is difficult, isn't it? When you first start a leader, because it's that trust.
Yeah, it is. It's the trust, but unless you make a mistake, you're not going to learn. And it's not a bad thing to make mistakes, because if you make one once, then you'll not do the same thing again, hopefully. And if you're not doing something, and if you don't make mistakes, then you're not progressing forward. So show me someone who's done nothing, and I'll show you someone who's never made a mistake. So you have to embrace that and learn from it. It's an opportunity.
Love it. Excellent. Biggest influence from either sporting world, business world, anyone that springs to mind that's ever influenced you?
Was somebody who comes to mind when I look at anyone outside of my industry as a leader and as a person. I was once very privileged to be taking a flight to France, and who should I be sat next to but Sir Bobby Robson?
Wow. Yeah.
So I shared a glass of champagne with him. It was in the morning. I asked him who he was going to go and sign, and he wouldn't tell me. And then he proceeded to eat his pot of marmalade with a knife, left his toast. But what an inspiring character! What an inspiring person! What a leadership style he had! He wasn't afraid for people to laugh at him and with him. So he would probably be the person who I would say was most inspirational and still is to me.
Yeah, amazing. And so I met him as well. I love that. What are three things or words that make up a good leader, would you say?
Integrity, fairness, and honesty.
Love it. Excellent. Best book or audio book podcast you've ever read or listened to?
That's a good one, because I don't really watch podcasts or listen to any. But I would probably say that one that chap Mark Bracknell, whoever he is, he does some good ones.
Yeah, the latest episode was the best. Yeah.
Is that this one?
Yeah. Any books? Are you a reader? Any sort of business books that you ever?
I'm not. No, I wouldn't say I'm a reader. I mean, there's one that's called The Machine That Changed the World, which is a little bit about the sort of the lean transformations that came around with the Toyota people and things. But that's a little bit nerdish, I guess. So no. I to be honest, I don't tend to read and research, and I just do things on the hoof and do things that come naturally to me. So no, not really.
Yeah, love it. What interesting one for you, because obviously I know you went to university. What's more important, an academic route or on the job learning?
It's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, my background is one of academic. I went to university and did a degree in manufacturing systems. But I look around me and I look at some of those people who have progressed to the highest positions in organisations, and they've done an on-the-job learning and apprenticeship route. And I don't think there's a right answer to the question. I don't think either route is the best one. I think it depends on the person. It depends, and it's really difficult at the age of 16. How on earth do you know which route you want to follow? And I didn't. I just drifted into university. So I wouldn't like to say that either route is better than the other. I think it's purely dependent on the individual. It depends on where they are at that time in their life, whether they feel that they want to continue in education because they enjoy it, or whether they feel they want to get a couple of pounds in the back pocket and they want to go and learn through on the job. So I don't think either one is the best route. I think it depends on the individual and their circumstances and what they feel that they want to do at that point in time. And that's how I feel about that sort of education part of it.
Good answer. Finally, if you could wave a magic wand and improve the manufacturing industry today, how would you do it? In the UK.
Wow. I think I would probably try and look for investment and capital, because we've been here and we've been doing things for a long period of time, and to really progress to that next stage of using integrated automation, using this Industry 4, which is just really stuff that's been around since time began. But to really change the face of the manufacturing industry in the UK, we need the right skills. So, and I think those will exist because we've got a good education system, we've got good apprenticeship systems, but I think the investment is needed to transform some of our manufacturing processes. So I think if I had a magic wand, I'd look for some money, but I wouldn't just throw it around. Clearly, if you have that capital investment, you have to have a return on it. Without that return on it, then nobody's going to invest. But yeah, I think the investment that we see up at Sunderland and Nissan particularly is really good to see. But that investment's only worthwhile if the tier ones and tier twos and the smaller manufacturers are able to also invest to keep up to speed with that.
Love that. Excellent. Look, Jonathan, this has been great. I was looking forward to it, and it definitely didn't disappoint. I think what I've really enjoyed it because it's been a proper leadership and manufacturing conversation, and I think people can learn a lot from your career and your leadership style. And like we said before, leadership now is about trust. It's about empathy. It's about supporting teams, make them feel safe. You know, none of the words we probably would have described 30 years ago. It's massively changed. So I think almost if leaders can understand that, it almost takes the pressure off a little bit, thinking they need to be something that they're not. So people can learn loads from this, and I certainly have. It's been great, and I wish you all the luck and Gestamp luck. So thank you, mate. Really appreciate this.
Thanks, Mark. No problem. Take care. Good to talk.